After half a century of loyalty to the Parivar, today the Ghulam has become Azad, one of the tallest leaders of the Congress, a former chief minister and leader of opposition in the Rajya Sabha. Ghulam Nabi Azad has dumped the Gandhis. In an emotional 5-page letter, he's recounted how his loyalty was repaid with treachery and betrayal by the Parivar. His most direct and scathing criticism, however, was for Rahul Gandhi. He called him out for his immaturity and for demolishing the Congress's consultative mechanism with a remote control, not pulling any punches. Azad said that the presidential polls have been reduced to a farce, where the chosen one will be reduced to a puppet on strings. Now let's remember that this is a man who's been loyal to the Parivar and spent almost 50 years building the party from the ground. He shared close bonds with Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi and Sanjay Gandhi, a loyal soldier in all of their trials and tribulations. Today, when this pillar crumbles, will the mother-son duo introspect on what forced this lieutenant to desert the ship? Unfortunately, his resignation was met with conspicuous silence by the Parivar, while the Darbaris took turns ridiculing him and shielding Rahul. Listen in.
कई लोग देश के नौजवान मेरी तरह संजय गांधी के साथ नहीं थे, उनके विचारों का मेल नहीं खाता था, हम खिलाफ थे उनके। ठीक है, ये चलता रहता राजनीति के अंदर। आज राहुल गांधी आए हैं, राहुल गांधी जी अपने हिसाब से किस प्रकार मैं कांग्रेस को आगे ले जाऊं, उनकी अपनी सोच होगी। जो इन्होंने कहा आज, अभी तो मैं खुद सदमे में हूं। एक ऐसा 42 साल का जिसको सब कुछ मिला जिंदगी के अंदर, 42 साल ही बगैर पद के नहीं रहे हो व्यक्ति, आज वो ये मैसेज दे रहे हैं जैसे कि जो मेरी समझ के परे हैं।
We are where we are today thanks to leaders like Ghulam Nabi Azad. He needs to take responsibility of all the blunders that he committed. Today suddenly he becomes holier than thou. Today suddenly he finds everything that was wrong since 2010, 1998, 1999. Why didn't he speak then? Why is he speaking now? So this is the man whose remote control is with Mr. Narendra Modi. We all saw how Mr. Modi shed tears for the first and perhaps the last time in his life for Ghulam Nabi Azad. So we know what this relationship is.
Now this is the very psychophancy of the coterie which has driven away the G23 from the party. Watch how those who were once pillars of the party revolted against the Parivar.
If you read the Ghulam Nabi Azad letter and the letter I wrote in 2015, you will get lot of similarity. Everybody knows that Rahul Gandhi is an immature, whimsical and unpredictable leader. As a result, what happened? The people who were loyal to the party or who are loyal to the party, they are deserting one by one.
This situation was entirely avoidable, considering the fact that there have been many serious discussions. The understanding was not honored.
The Indian National Congress decision-making body is now coterie heavy, cabal heavy, and not well-meaning leaders heavy. The well-meaning leaders, people who give their blood and sweat, selflessly work for the Congress party, are being in a very systematic and a sinister manner being elbowed out of the party.
In February 2021, the Rajya Sabha bid farewell to Ghulam Nabi Azad, who was then the leader of opposition. While not one word or even a curtsy tweet came in from the Gandhis, the Prime Minister bid him a teary-eyed tribute.
कश्मीर में जाने वाले टूरिस्ट में गुजरात बहुत बड़ा नंबर रहता है और टेररिस्टों ने पर हमला कर दिया, करीब 8 लोग शायद मारे गए। सबसे पहले गुलाम नबी जी का मुझे फोन आया, उनके आंसू रुक नहीं रहे थे। अपने परिवार के सदस्य की चिंता करें, वैसी चिंता
We have a guest joining us. Guruprakash, national spokesperson of the BJP, is with us. Sandeep Ghosh, author, is also with us. Gokul Chandran, political analyst, is with us. But before I come across to you, gentlemen, I want to first and foremost go across to Ashwini Kumar, former union minister, who's joining us live at the moment. Ashwini Kumar, my first and foremost question to you. when you read the words that were used today by Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad when he leaves, and he's a very, very senior leader, perhaps one of the senior most leaders who in recent months has perhaps left the party, a former chief minister, someone who's been at the helm of affairs for about 4 decades as far as the Congress is concerned, when he today comes out and says that he has a problem with the functioning of the party, look at the response that's coming in from the Congress party. Are you surprised at all?
Well, I'm not surprised, because it has been a tradition that whoever makes even a consensus expression which is different from that of the establishment will be hounded out, and this has been one of the reasons for the decline of the Congress party. To have to suffer comments from people who were not even born when people like Ghulam Nabi Azad and myself and some others gave their blood and sweat for the party is doubly insulting and humiliating. I think the need of the hour for the Congress is to look inwards and see why those who have stood by through thick and thin are now being compelled to part company with it, rather than finding fault with those who are now leaving. What kind of a logic is this, that so-and-so has got so-and-so position from the party and therefore he has no right to differ from the way we are functioning now? Look, there is a level each one. You deal with certain situations, you stop short from taking major steps when you don't like certain things, but there comes a point in one's life which is the tipping point, and then you can't take it any longer, and then you said, fine, I have not been able to change things, let me go. Now in his parting shot, he has written a 5-page letter. I had written 5 lines, and I said it all in those 5 lines, and I said I don't find it possible now to work within the party consistent with my dignity. I have no difference of opinion with the ideology of the Congress party. I want to repeat it. Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad wrote a long letter only to express his deep anguish, and he has pointed out the factors that led him to take this decision.
Let me go
because
to those
being
factors,
an insider for such a long
if you don't mind, I would just like to interrupt you and go one by one to these factors. One of the things that he mentions, Mr. Ashwini Kumar, is that he says that unfortunately after entry of Shri Rahul Gandhi into politics, particularly after 13 January when he was appointed Vice President by you, the entire consultative mechanism which existed earlier was demolished by him. All senior and experienced leaders were sidelined. New coterie of inexperienced sycophants started running the affairs of the party. He also refers to the tearing up of the government audience in the full glare of the media, calling it a glaring example of immaturity, also saying this childish behavior completely subverted the authority of the Prime Minister and the government of India. Now many would question that all this may be true, but why is Mr. Azad speaking up now when this incident happened a good 8 years ago?
Well, I've already told you that in my opening statement, if you care to listen to it. I said there comes a tipping point. His tipping point came now. There were a series of things that people were concerned about, but out of respect for Sonia ji, out of respect for the situation in which the party was, out of respect for several other factors, people kept quiet. That does not mean that they can't open up their mouth at any point of time. I did it 5 months ago, Mr. Azad has done now, some will do it afterwards, some have done before us. So it's a question of when a person takes the call, and that's a function of each person's judgment. So I don't think you have to make an issue out of that. Now, as far as the tearing of the ordinance was concerned, quite clearly that sealed the fate of the Congress party, and that ordinance was torn when the Prime Minister of the country was out in America negotiating with the President of the United States on critical issues at that point of time. And then, of course, we know the decline of the party started in 2014 onwards. Who was at the helm of affairs at that time? We all know that.
Right.
And we know that although Srimati Sonia Gandhi, who is a very astute and a very experienced leader, who is the president of the party, and she has had rendered great service to the country and to the Congress party, but now we know that the imprint of her judgment is not felt on the critical decisions which are being taken by the party. We know that.
Right. Very, very importantly, you know, Mr. Ashwini Kumar, in the wake of all of these exits that we've seen, of over a dozen or so leaders of the past 3 years who've left, and significant names, including yourself, who've served at the highest levels of government. Now, Mr. Azad also makes a very important point. He says that, in fact, before starting a Bharat Jodo Yatra, the leadership could have undertaken a Congress Jodo exercise across the country. So why is it so difficult for the Congress leadership to... There are, of course, problems that have been pinpointed by Mr. Azad, but is this a conscious effort? Because the G23 has pointed these issues out several times. They've said so in public, they've said so in private. Some of the leaders have been accommodated in different roles. But why is it that the message that the G23 set out to actually send out, why has that not been heard? Why has the party not been able to incorporate that?
Well, let's forget about G23 for the moment. G23 has become a kind of a phrase that people use all the time, but there have been people who have been bringing it to the notice of the Honorable Congress President for a long time about what is the party and what needs to be done in their own respectful way. But the fact remains, and which is now obvious, that it has been decided at certain levels that the Congress of the future will be led by so-and-so, and if that decision has been taken, it is a logical sequitur that that so-and-so leader or leaders will have people of their confidence around them. There's no problem even with that. After all, when generational change happens, there is a shift in the leadership structure. Nobody is quarreling with that. The younger people must come forward, and sooner or later the older people have to make way. But there is a way in democratic politics. The transition has to be gradual, it has to be respectful, and you cannot create a superstructure on an edifice whose foundation has been weakened by weakening those people who stood by the party through thick and thin. Right. You can't get one set of supporters in the party and lose veterans who have given their life, their blood and sweat to the party. What kind of a strengthening exercise is this? Right. You are not sure about who you are bringing in. You are not sure how far you will be able to groom them. And those who know it all are being elbowed out and being diminished.
Absolutely, and I think the electoral results of the Congress party speak for themselves. Mr. Azad also refers to the insults in terms of the protests, etc., that have taken place, some of them even resorting to mild violence at different places, which clearly several of the Congress leaders were not happy with. But I'd like to thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us your views, Mr. Ashwini Kumar. Let's now go across to our other guests who are with us. Guruprakash is the national spokesperson of the BJP. Guruprakash, first and foremost, when you look at the statement coming in from senior leaders like Ashwani Kumar, there are serious questions. And these are very, very serious questions of the manner in which generational change has happened. Over here, you have seen generational change happen in other parties, including the BJP, but the manner in which it's happening in the Congress party, clearly, many are feeling slighted by their treatment from the hands of the leadership, and that's why you're seeing results such as this, is what Ashwini Kumar just told us. Your comments on that?
No, certainly, Madhav, we must understand that since 1980, only Sitaram Kesari, beyond the family, has been the Congress president. And the nation remembers how badly he was insulted. Look at the phrases used by senior leader of the Congress party, Ghulam Nabi Azad. Zero institutional integrity. Organizational election was a farce and a sham. Childish, immature Congress party, inexperienced sycophants. So we have to understand that this is the oldest party we are talking about. Okay. There is not an iota of internal democracy or collective decision making left with the Congress party.
Let me take that across. Let me take that across to Gokul Chandran. Gokul Chandran, Ghulam Nabi Azad refers to the protests that took place where his effigies were burnt. We have seen protests outside Kapil Sibal's house, and in fact the same coterie unleashed its gundas to physically attack the residence of former ministerial colleague Kapil Sibal, who incidentally was defending you and your kin in courts of law. Now this is absolutely bizarre. A person who's who's defending the Gandhi family in courts of law, their residence gets attacked allegedly by Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad, and that was widely reported. What's happening within the Congress party? Why is there so much of turmoil within, where even the seniors cannot be treated with respect? That seems to be one of the major points that Mr. Azad's making.
Yeah, good evening, Madhav. See, the problem with Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad's letter is, he was such a tall leader and with such a high stature. When he is leaving a party, he can leave a party. he must be having some differences within the party, within the ideology or anything. He can leave the party. But while leaving, such people should leave in grace. They should be leaving with some self-respect. They can go to any party or they can start a new party, no problem. But see the letter, the words chose by Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad while leaving the party. He's using words like puppet, and he's talking about talking nonsense in short. See, there is no fact that one of the incorrect thing which Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad wrote in his letter, I will clarify.
Over a dozen and a half leaders who've left have all said the same thing about the problems with the party's leadership, inaccessibility, why they are so indifferent, why their own coterie tries and attacks the senior leaders. No, the point is there are generational changes that have happened in other political parties, Gokul Chandran. The only problem is why is this dirty linen coming out? If they were treated respectfully, clearly they wouldn't be speaking out like this.
See, when he was Rajya Sabha member, he didn't have any problem. He was happy with everything, this coterie, the sycophants, everything he was okay with till he was the Rajya Sabha member. Once he was not given another term in Rajya Sabha, now he realized that the party is in shambles, party is not doing good. Mr. Rahul Gandhi is not a good leader. Only after he was not given a Rajya Sabha seat, he should have, while as a Rajya Sabha member, he could have resigned as the MP and he could have told all these things. See, one incorrect thing, one thing I will tell to your viewers, he told that there is no democracy in the party. The elections happening are sham. There is
Sandeep Ghosh, this is opportunism. Without saying so, what Gokul Chandran is referring to is that this is opportunism. When he was in the Rajya Sabha, why didn't he bring out all these issues of things that have happened in the past? 1 second. Your response, you've asked the question, now listen to the response from Sandeep Ghosh.
Madhav, that's a very unfair statement because people like Ghulam Nabi Azad have stayed to the party through thick and thin. People have narrated today, I was reading somewhere, that when Congress didn't have the money, people like him were, living on banana and milk, and he ruined his health. So they have gone through it in that sort of a manner all these years. So they have done that. To say, therefore, today they are revolting only for a Rajya Sabha seat is unfair. You are talking about generational shift. But this is not only restricted to generation. It's not the older people who are leaving. Look at the previous. Even yesterday, you had Jaiveer Shargil who quit. He's not an old guard. Before that, whether you take Jitin Prasad, RPN Singh, even Jyotiraditya Scindia, these were part of Rahul Gandhi's own team. All of them have quit and with the same sort of grievance. And you see, I would differ from the point of view that I don't think Ghulam Nabi Azad, he may have spoken blunt truth, but he has not been impolite or it was not lack of
Well, there is of course a difference of perception, but the points that have been made not just by Ghulam Nabi Azad, but the others who have departed from the Congress in recent days and have made similar points about the inaccessibility of the leadership, of the fact that they don't listen. Those are some points that are repeatedly a common leitmotif, whether or not they've joined other political parties. So is the party listening? Will there be some kind of change after this exit, or will things continue to be more of the same? That's a question that certainly is for the party to look at. We'll have to thank all of you for joining us. We were slipping into a very quick break for the moment.